The first fracture wasn't in her body, it was in her trust. The screech of tires biting the pavement shattered the early morning like a death sentence. Isabella Duarte, 42, was behind the wheel of her black SUV, alone, her head full of thoughts, but her heart full of doubts. She had been feeling for weeks that something didn't fit, that her world, so carefully built, was cracking from within. She couldn't have imagined that in a matter of seconds everything would explode into 1,000 pieces. The impact was brutal. The sound of metal against metal. Glass flying like broken stars. Darkness swallowing the road. Then, the deepest silence. But Isabella didn't die. She woke up in a different kind of prison. A white room. A constant buzzing. The rhythmic beep of a machine. Her body motionless. Her voice trapped. And her mind awake. She could hear. She understood everything. She felt everything. But she couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't cry. Her body didn't respond, but her soul screamed. Isabella Duarte had survived the accident, but something worse was about to begin. A businesswoman, philanthropist, admired in the media for her work with vulnerable women, she had built her empire from the ground up. She came from a childhood marked by poverty, raised by a single mother who quietly cleaned houses with dignity. Her father, an absent man who never returned, taught her something without being there: never trust someone who promises eternal love. By age 30, she was already running a chain of financial consulting firms, and by 35, she had created a foundation that saved more than 2,000 women from violent relationships. The irony, she was married to a man who was slowly killing her, and no one knew. On the third day of being hospitalized, she heard the door open. Confident footsteps. The unmistakable echo of expensive shoes. His perfume. The one he always said he wore to please her. Julian Rivas, her husband. A brilliant lawyer, charismatic, with a charming smile, and a rotten soul. "There's no change," said Valeria, the nurse on duty. Sweet voice, almost innocent. "You just make sure it stays that way," he replied, in a tone that made Isabella's skin crawl. Silence. A couple of seconds. Then the words that froze her blood. "She's no longer a burden. All her fortune will be ours." And he laughed. He laughed like he was talking about a trophy. Like she, still alive, was a closed bank account about to be opened. Valeria didn't answer with words. She just moved closer, kissed him passionately, and whispered, "Soon, my love. It will all be ours." Isabella wanted to scream. Wanted to get up and rip out the wires, look Julian in the eyes, and ask him how love turned into poison. But her body was still paralyzed. Her soul in shock. She cried, but the tears only fell inside. Hours later, another familiar face appeared. Tomas. Salt and pepper hair, glasses hanging from his neck, scent of coffee and old books. Her former partner, almost a brother. He was one of the few men who believed in her when she was just a young woman with ideas, no degree, no support, but with an uncontrollable rage to change her destiny. "ISA," he murmured, sitting by her side. "You look as strong as ever. Though I know you're fighting inside." As always. He talked to her for more than half an hour. He told her that Julian had made strange decisions in the company. That he withdrew capital, sold shares, even put their country house up for sale. He spoke with concern, but with respect. Isabella listened to everything. With every word, her mind wove a net. She was no longer just wounded. She was awake, alert, preparing. Days passed. Isabella began to notice more things. Valeria changed her sedative doses too often. The night nurses didn't last more than a week. One with short hair and warm eyes used to sing to her while cleaning her hands. "You're not going to die, ma'am." "I know it." That nurse disappeared without a trace. And then it happened. One morning, when the room was empty, Isabella felt a tingling in the index finger of her right hand. She tried to move. She focused all her energy. Millimeter by millimeter, the finger bent. Then, her left eyelid twitched. She had done it. Her body was beginning to wake up. The next night, Julian returned. He approached her, took her hand with feigned tenderness. Valeria was by his side, caressing the controls. "I'm afraid she's going to wake up," she said, voice trembling. "And if she does, we'll know how to shut her up." Again. Isabella understood at that moment that she couldn't give herself away. Not yet. She had to pretend. She needed time to gather evidence, to understand how far the betrayal went. "I would pretend to still be asleep. I would pretend to be weak. I would pretend to be the woman they thought they had defeated." That very night, a new nurse watched her closely. She had seen a slight reaction in her hand. She ran to find the head nurse. But she never arrived. The next morning, her locker was empty. Her number, out of service. Her name, erased from the staff list. No one remembered hiring her. Isabella's room became a prison without bars, but with cameras. Tomas came to visit her again. "I don't care if you can't hear me. I just want you to know I'll be here. Something smells off. Julian is not clean." Valeria interrupted him, with that professional smile that hid as much venom as her voice. "Visits are restricted. She needs rest, not answers." Isabella hated Valeria's smile. That way of looking at others as if they were pieces on a board she thought she controlled. Julian showed up hours later. This time he wasn't carrying flowers. He had papers. He was on the phone. "Yes, almost there. The company will merge soon," he said. "No, she's not signing. It's not necessary. I have full power, for now." And then, as if it were a scene from a macabre play, he sat on the edge of the bed. He took her hand. He caressed it with false tenderness. "You know what, Isa? You were always too much for this world. You were always the heroine. But heroines end up alone." She watched him from inside. Her rage burned. Not because of the money. Not because of the deceit. But because of the love she thought she had and now saw as a well-rehearsed lie. Julian stood up and just before leaving whispered in her ear, "I hope you never wake up. Because if you do, you won't know who else you can trust with your life." When he left, Isabella felt her first real tear run down her cheek. That night, as the sky turned red and the city carried on with its indifferent rhythm, Isabella Duarte made a decision. It wasn't time to heal. It was time to take revenge. No one else entered her room that night. Only the hum of the machines and the murmur of her own heart, which no longer beat out of fear, but out of determination. She wasn't going to die in that bed. She was going to wake up. And the world was going to burn. The previous night had been the first without fear. Isabella Duarte didn't sleep. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want anymore. She no longer cared to rest, to cry, or to ask the heavens for answers. The only thing she needed was time. Time to understand. Time to act. And above all, time to get revenge. Dawn filtered through the hospital room curtains like a slow knife. The shadows revealed it was Monday. Isabella no longer had certainty about the calendar, but she could guess it by the rhythm of the staff's footsteps, the distant buzz of the elevators, and the smell of cheap coffee filling the hallway. That day, she made a decision with no turning back. She was going to leave. No one expected it. Not even Julian, who visited her less and less. He pretended to care, but his eyes no longer held the fear of losing her, but the fear that she would wake up and start talking. When the chief doctor came in to check on her, she moved her arm, then her lips, then said a single word, barely audible. "Water." The man looked at her as if he had witnessed a miracle. Within 15 minutes, there was a medical board, nurses crying, and a reporter stationed at the entrance who didn't get very far. Julian gave the order. No press conferences, no statements. Only silence. When he entered the room, Isabella pretended to be weak. She sank into the bed. She feigned a broken voice. "What happened?" she asked, knowing that every feigned word would be another noose tightening around her husband. "You had an accident. You were in a coma. But the important thing is you're alive," Julian replied, with a measured voice, that practiced lawyer tone. He took her hand as if it were made of glass. "You don't know how much I prayed for this moment." Isabella looked him straight in the eyes. The disgust was hidden behind a soft smile. "And Valeria?" she asked slowly. Julian slightly furrowed his brow. "She quit. She couldn't bear seeing you like this. It hurt her too much." He lied. Every word came out with the precision of a script. The next day, Isabella was discharged. No cameras, no interviews. Julian signed the papers, paid with his card, and helped her into the car as if it were his final act of chivalry. The ride home was silent. She stared out the window. Her city looked the same, but she was no longer the same. That night, they dined in the main dining room. The house smelled of disinfectant, as if it had been prepared to hide something. Isabella barely touched her plate. Julian watched her with an unsettling calm. "You need to eat. To recover." "I'm not hungry." He nodded but insisted. He poured the wine with a slowness that frustrated her. Isabella watched the rim of her glass. She didn't drink. She waited for him to drink first. He did, without hesitation. But that didn't reassure her. 3 days passed. 3 silent nights, tasteless food, and calculated looks. Julian no longer tried to fake love. Only routine. As if he expected something to return to normal. As if his plan could still unfold without her noticing. Isabella began moving in secret. One night, she went down to the basement office. Julian's desk had a drawer with a false bottom. She knew it. She had had it made herself. She found it. 3 passports, 2 satellite phones, and copies of millionaire transfers to banks and tax havens. The fortune was being withdrawn little by little. It was clear, if she died, no one would know anything. The next day, she contacted Tomas. She met him in the garden, away from security cameras. He arrived with a look between relief and anxiety. I thought I lost you. You didn't lose me. But they almost succeeded." She looked at him coldly. "I need you to help me. I can't trust anyone else." She showed him the documents. Tomas turned pale. "This is more serious than I thought. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take back my life. But first, I need to find someone." Hours later, Isabella opened a trunk her mother had left before dying. Inside, a wooden box. Old photographs, letters, and a single word written in smudged ink, Camila. It was a letter. From her mother. Confessing something she never dared to tell her while alive. That when Isabella got pregnant at 17, her father forced her to give up the baby. That the girl was not legally adopted but sold. That she was alive, but no one knew where. Isabella felt an emptiness that no punishment to Julian could fill. Her daughter was alive. With Tomas's help, they followed leads for days. Finally, they found a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Streets without pavement, tin roofs, barefoot children running with kites made from supermarket bags. There lived Dona Nina. A woman almost 70 years old, thin, coughing every 5 minutes, with a hoarse voice and a gentle gaze. "Camila?" Isabella asked, disguised with a cap, sunglasses, and plain clothes. Dona Nina looked at her suspiciously. "What do you want with my granddaughter?" "Nothing bad. I just want to meet her. To help her." Dona Nina didn't ask more. She knew that in neighborhoods like hers, secrets aren't discovered by chance. Camila appeared half an hour later. 20 years old. Dark-skinned, thin, with scars on her arms. A hard look. A mix of anger and distrust. "Who are you?" She fired immediately. "Just someone who wants to help. I work with young women in vulnerable areas." Camila laughed sarcastically. "The rich always come to ease their guilt. What are you looking for? Redemption? An article for your blog." Isabella swallowed hard. The words hurt, not because they were offensive, but because they were true. "I just came to help. Nothing more." Camila didn't respond. She went to the back room. In the following days, Isabella returned. She brought food, medicine for Dona Nina, books. She started teaching a neighborhood girl to read. Slowly, her presence stopped seeming strange. But Julian was already suspicious. He was following her. He knew. Then, he tried everything. He started a media campaign. Contacted journalists. Sent them edited audios, supposed medical notes where Isabella appeared with psychiatric diagnoses. They showed her talking to herself, laughing without reason. On the news, they mocked her. On social media, they called her the crazy millionaire. Board members began shutting doors. Brands pulled their funding. Her foundation was frozen, and her house was seized for debts Julian fabricated with false documents. Isabella was left with nothing. She returned to Dona Nina's house. She slept on a mattress in the living room, shared the bathroom with 5 people, ate rice with eggs, and was grateful. Because there, for the first time in years, no one lied to her. Camila watched her from afar. Every night, every gesture. And she began to doubt. I don't understand why you keep coming. No one would. Not without expecting something. Sometimes, people just want to fix what they broke, even if they don't say it. Camila stared at her. She said nothing. She left. The tension grew. Julian, at the peak of his cynicism, gave an interview. Isabella is sick. She lost control. Everything she does is just to get attention. It breaks my heart to see her like this. But I can't help her anymore. Valeria resurfaced in another city. She claimed Isabella had harassed her. She showed screenshots of fabricated messages. The world believed the easiest version. But someone didn't. The doctor who had been in charge of Isabella's coma was found dead in his apartment. Supposed suicide. On the table, a letter. A USB drive. The content leaked by Tomas was devastating. A recording. The doctor looking into the camera, his voice trembling. Isabella Duarte was conscious from the second week. I reported it, but they silenced me. They threatened me. They used me. I'm sorry, Isabella. I'm so sorry. The recording went viral. Public opinion began to shift. The looks once full of mockery turned into doubt. Into guilt. The damage was done, but the truth was starting to surface. That night, Camila approached Isabella. What did they do to you? Isabella lowered her gaze. She said nothing. Camila sat beside her. For the first time, in silence. That night they didn't speak. They just shared the same air. And for the first time in a long time, Isabella slept without fear. Because she had lost everything. But she had regained something more valuable. Hope. And the fire that came after was going to burn it all down. That night was different. Not because of the words left unsaid, nor the silences shared in a room where the neighborhood's heat seeped through broken walls. It was different because, for the first time, Camila sat next to Isabella without anger, without judgment, without that invisible wall she had built for weeks just to survive. And because Isabella slept without the weight of fear, without the disgust of lies, only with hope, the kind that hurts when it returns, that something was beginning to change. But the body is treacherous when it holds too many battles. At dawn, Isabella woke with a sharp pain under her ribs. She ignored it. She had things to do. Distribute the food from the donation she had gotten through the women's network that followed her. Check the notebooks of the kids she taught in the afternoons. See if Dona Nina had taken her medicine. The pain returned 2 days later, stronger, darker. It took her to the neighborhood clinic, a place with cracked walls and a waiting room without seats. The doctor treated her respectfully, though without knowing who she was. Isabella was just another woman with tired skin and a tight heart. He did an ultrasound, then a CT scan, then told her to sit and offered a glass of water. There's something I have to tell you, the doctor began, eyes downcast. It's not easy, but I have to be clear. Isabella nodded. You have pancreatic cancer. Advanced. Very advanced. The pain you're feeling won't go away with simple painkillers. We're going to need palliative treatment. I'm very sorry. She didn't cry. She didn't ask how much time she had left. She didn't ask for second opinions. She just looked at the ceiling with the calm of someone who's already lost everything before. Cancer wasn't her sentence. She had already been condemned for years. The diagnosis, instead, was a permission. The permission she needed to stop being afraid. That same afternoon, she returned to the neighborhood with a bag of medication she couldn't afford without help. Camila waited for her at the door, watched her stagger, helped her inside. Are you okay? A little tired, Isabella answered, without giving details. Weeks passed. The pain didn't ease, but neither did she. Isabella spent her mornings organizing the food distribution network. She had a notebook where she wrote down who needed what. She handed out diapers, rice, soap. She expected nothing in return. She just smiled. In the afternoons, she sat on the curb with 3 neighborhood kids teaching them to read. She took them seriously, corrected their pronunciation, talked to them as if they were the future lawyers or doctors she never had close to her as a child. Camila watched her every day with a mix of anger and admiration. She didn't understand why that woman did so much for people who weren't her family. Why she never got tired. Why she never gave up. One night, while they were washing the dishes together, Camila spoke without looking. "I wish I had a mother like you." Isabella dropped the glass. It didn't break. It just trembled on the edge of the sink. "Camila," she said, but the words wouldn't come out. "Forget it," the young woman added, as if she didn't want to open any more wounds. Isabella locked herself in the bathroom and cried with her mouth covered. She cried with an intensity she had never known before. Because she knew that sentence was the deepest wound for both of them. Because it was true. Because she really was her mother. And because she had come too late. Tomas showed up 2 days later with a USB drive in his pocket and an expression he couldn't hide. "We have everything," he said, without greeting her. "Recordings, transfers, photos, audios. We have it. And we're going to release it." Isabella looked at him with glassy eyes. "Make sure I have nothing left to say." Tomas worked with an independent journalist. In less than 48 hours, the scandal went viral. Recordings of Julian in private meetings leaked, negotiating stolen assets from the foundation, buying loyalties, arranging silences. Audios where his voice could be clearly heard saying, "If she wakes up, I'll put her back to sleep. I have the means. I've done it once already." The social networks exploded. The press, which had ridiculed her before, now praised her. They wanted interviews, reports. People on the street began calling her brave, survivor, heroine. But she didn't want glory. Only justice. Julian was arrested. He resisted. Claimed it was a setup. But the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor looked at him with contempt while reading the charges: fraud, attempted homicide, money laundering. Valeria, upon learning about the arrest, disappeared for 72 hours. They found her in a motel, unconscious from an overdose. She was breathing, but barely. Camila was the one who accompanied her in the ambulance. She held her hand. Not out of pity, but out of respect for her own humanity. "We're not the same," she whispered in her ear, "but I don't hate you either." Valeria woke up 2 days later, confused. She didn't want to talk. But she cried. The calm that came afterward was strange. Isabella felt everything slower. Every day that passed, her body responded less. She was afraid to close her eyes and never open them again. Not because of dying, but because of dying without telling the truth. One night, she called Camila to her side. "I have something to give you." It was a journal. Old, with worn leather covers. She had written in it every night since she left the hospital. Every word, every discovery. Her thoughts. Her pain. Her truth. "What is this?" "It's the only thing they didn't steal from me." Camila took it but didn't open it. "Why are you giving it to me?" "Because you're my daughter." The silence was absolute. The neighborhood kept beating outside. But in that room, time stopped. "What did you say?" "You are my daughter, Camila. I lost you when you were a baby. My mother gave you away. I didn't know where you were. I looked for you. But it wasn't enough." Camila stood up. The journal fell to the floor. "Is this a joke?" "No." Camila screamed. She cried. She struck her softly on the chest with contained rage. "You left me. You left me with people who yelled at me, who hit me. I went hungry. I was abused. Where were you?" Isabella hugged her. She didn't defend herself. She didn't justify anything. "I was broken. Just like you. And I'm here because I want to fix it, even if I don't have time anymore." Camila stepped away. She ran out. She didn't come back that night. Isabella didn't sleep. The next day, she woke up with a fever. She couldn't get up. The neighborhood kids waited for her with their notebooks, but she didn't come downstairs. 2 days passed. Donna Nina called Tomas. He arrived with a private doctor. They gave her an 4, examined her. There wasn't much left to do. Camila came back on the night of the 3rd day. She entered without speaking. She sat beside her. She took her hand. "I read you." Isabella opened her eyes. She smiled, just a little. "And? I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't want you to. I just want you to live." Camila rested her forehead against hers. They cried silently. 2 days later, Isabella died. Surrounded by neighborhood children, by women who didn't know how to thank her, by Tomas, who closed her eyes with trembling hands. Camila found a letter next to the diary. "I don't want you to remember me for what I didn't do. I want you to live for what you can do. Make something beautiful out of your pain." Months later, Camila founded the Duarte Foundation. For single mothers, for orphan children, for teenagers with stories like hers. In her first interview, she said something that made half the country cry. "My mother didn't die in a bed, she died fighting. And because of that, I learned how to live." And so, the fire that burned the truth didn't destroy. It illuminated. If you liked this story, I invite you to leave me a comment about what you felt when you heard it, and if you've gone through a similar betrayal, I'd love for you to share your valuable opinion. Remember to tell me which city you're watching this video from. I would be very honored if you leave me a like, share the video with a friend or family member, and subscribe to the channel. Don't miss the next amazing story that's appearing on your screen right now. We have guaranteed entertainment exclusively for you. See you in the next video.